Motherhood is often imagined as unconditional love, warmth, and protection. But what happens when a mother is also a source of fear, silence, and unresolved pain? In Mother Mary Comes to Me, Arundhati Roy invites us into this uncomfortable space where love and hurt exist side by side, and where memory refuses to offer easy forgiveness. This book is not a tribute, not a reconciliation, and not a confession in search of absolution. It is a reckoning. At the center of this memoir is Mary Roy, Arundhati Roy's mother, a woman who was fiercely intelligent, uncompromising, and ahead of her time. Born into a Syrian Christian family in Kerala, Mary Roy defied expectations placed on women. She was educated, outspoken, and unwilling to accept a life of submission. She left a violent marriage. She raised her children as a single mother. And she fought one of India's most important legal battles for women's inheritance rights. In 1986, her case changed the law, granting Syrian Christian women equal rights to ancestral property. To the world, Mary Roy was a feminist icon. But to her daughter, she was also something else. Arundhati Roy's childhood was marked not by comfort, but by instability and fear. Home was not a refuge, it was a battlefield of words, silences, and emotional withdrawal. After her parents separated, Roy grew up in Ayamenam, Kerala, under the shadow of social stigma. Her mother, burdened by survival in a patriarchal society, became strict, authoritarian, and emotionally distant. Love was not freely given. Affection was not expressed. Approval was conditional. Roy recalls a childhood where fear replaced tenderness and discipline required. She learned early that vulnerability was dangerous and silence was safer. One of the most haunting aspects of the book is the absence of apology. Mary Roy never apologized. Not for harsh words, not for emotional neglect, not for the pain she caused. To her, strength meant never admitting weakness. Control meant never yielding. Conversations between mother and daughter were often arguments. Language became a weapon rather than a bridge. Silence followed conflict, stretching for years, and with each passing year, the emotional distance grew. Arundhati Roy confronts a painful contradiction. How could a woman who fought so fiercely for women's rights deny emotional freedom to her own daughter? Mary Roy's feminism was forged in struggle. It was about survival, resistance, and refusing to be crushed by patriarchy. But it lacked softness. It lacked nurture. The book does not excuse Mary Roy's behavior, but contextualizes it. Roy asks us to consider how oppression can harden those who resist it, and how the cost of public victories is sometimes paid in private lives. Inheritance in this memoir is not just about land or lore. It is emotional, psychological, invisible. Arundhati Roy reflects on what she has inherited from her mother: strength, defiance, sharp intelligence, and an uncompromising spirit. But she has also inherited anger, loneliness, and emotional armor. She wonders how much of her own rage and independence are legacies of her mother's life. Whether we like it or not, parents live on inside us. As Roy grows older and becomes a celebrated writer, the relationship with her mother does not soften. Success does not bring validation. Achievement does not bring closeness. Instead, judgment remains. Even as an adult, Roy feels misunderstood, criticized, and emotionally unseen. The power dynamics shift, but the wounds remain open. As Mary Roy ages, illness and vulnerability enter the picture. The once formidable woman becomes dependent. But even then, reconciliation does not arrive. Caregiving becomes complicated, filled with duty, resentment, guilt, and exhaustion. Roy cares for her mother not out of emotional closeness, but responsibility. Love exists, but it is tangled and strained. When Mary Roy dies, there is no sudden peace. That does not heal what life could not. Instead, grief becomes complex, layered with anger, relief, regret, and longing. Roy refuses the comforting might that death redeems everything. Some relationships do not end neatly. Some wounds do not close. Roy is honest about the fragility of memory. She acknowledges that her story is one version among many. Memory is shaped by pain, time, and emotion. This awareness adds humility to the memoir. It is not an attempt to claim absolute truth, but to tell her truth. Writing this book becomes an act of survival. Through words, Roy speaks to a mother who can no longer respond. She refuses to romanticize motherhood or erase harm in the name of respect. Yet, she does not demonize her mother either. This is compassion without forgiveness, understanding without erasure. Mother Mary Comes to Me asks difficult questions. Can a mother love without kindness? Can political courage coexist with personal cruelty? What do we do with the inheritance of pain? This book is for daughters who love their mothers but cannot idealize them, for women who inherit both strength and damage, for anyone who understands that some relationships do not heal, but they can still be understood. In telling this story, Arundhati Roy claims her voice not as a daughter seeking approval, but as a woman telling her truth.